Hello, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time, to Youth Code Jam's online bits and bytes. We're working in a series right now called Code Adventures, which means we're going to be doing some activities with code, mostly block coding. Today's activity is going to be in something called MakeCode Arcade. It's an online program created by Microsoft, and we're going to make a game called Falling Fruit, where we have a player that catches fruit that's falling from the top of the screen. Ages for this program, we recommend students be between, well, at least the grades for 3rd through 8th grade should be able to handle this pretty well. Younger students are welcome to attempt it, but we do recommend having a parent on hand to help out, just because younger students aren't used to all the different moving things around on the computer or maybe the iPad quite as much. And older students are welcome to check it out too. They might have fun with it and be able to add some more stuff to it. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I'm going to actually be working on this from my iPad. This is because Microsoft's MakeCode Arcade platform you can work on it from a desktop computer, a laptop, I believe a Chromebook, tablets, and the phone. Now, we don't really recommend working on this from a phone because it's just not enough screen space and students tend to get really frustrated. I would get frustrated. I've tried to work on it before. So the smallest we recommend getting is a tablet. If the phone is all you have, that's fine. Then we recommend using the activity sheet that will be online after we have the live session for this, and to have that as a corresponding resource up on a different platform or printed out. So let's go ahead and get started for today. Excuse me a minute while I switch screens. So we're going to escape that, and then I'm going to new share to my iPad, and I've connected via cable, so hopefully we won't have any issues. Bring your shared window to the front. Hold on while it thinks. Okay, we don't want to do that. All right, there we go. Whoops. Sorry, we're having some. Here we go. So hopefully that, I don't want to download. Okay, so hopefully that will work for us. So I do have in my files on my iPad, I have our activity sheet here. This is actually an old one. Here we go. I have our activity sheet here. I will probably not switch between these just because it's not a lot of workspace, but you could just leave this open in the background and switch back and forth. And we'll just see how this goes. That's one way to work if you can't print it out or you don't have access to another screen, is that you can just leave it open in the background. You can download it to your tablet and just have it open in the background for you. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to leave this up, and then I'm going to go to, on an iPad, we're going to use Safari. I think most other things are going to use Google Chrome, and in a new tab, I'm going to type in, I'm just going to search for it. So Microsoft, so there it showed up, Microsoft Arcade. I'm going to click that option. So if you wanted to type in the link, it would be the arcade.makecode.com. I'm just going to click the link right there, and it will take you to this startup screen. Okay, we have this warning that we're using cookies. I know that because you don't actually have to have an account on MakeCode to save your projects. Because of the cookies, it saves everything until you clear the cookies out. Once you clear out your data history, then all those will go away. So you don't have to create an account if you don't want to. And we're not going to go through that. So we're just going to click on New Project, and you can name this whatever you want. If you want to have something else fall or whatever you want to call it, I'm just going to stick with the name of the activity and name it Falling Food, Falling Fruit, and press Create. And so this is our workspace. On the left, I can't use my cursor here. So on the left, you see the little game simulator. It kind of looks like an old Game Boy Color. That's where we're going to get to play with our game on here. You can obviously see there's a big orange download button. If you have the tech, you can download your game to different devices provided by Microsoft and other companies to play your game with that. But I don't have that, and I don't expect a lot of students to have that, so we're just going to use the simulator. In the middle column, those are called our drawers. That's where we're going to pull our blocks from. And on the left, that's our workspace. It kind of has that faint grid going on. That's where we're going to drag our blocks to. And we are going to go ahead and use that on start blocks, so we can just use it there, leave it there. So I'm going to click back to the activity sheet. And we're going to look at step 1. So our first step is we're going to set up a background for us. So we're going to go to the scene drawer and get a set tile map 2. So the scene drawer is this one with the tree next to it. And then set tile map. So we're going to come down here to this tile section. And we're going to get this first set tile map block and drop it inside of our onStart block. And then step 2 is setting that tile. So we're going to click that empty gray box, and it brings me to this work editor. You want to make sure show walls is set on. So it should have this red circle over here in the top. If it's off, it's going to be gray. So we want that set on. And then the first thing we're going to do is down in the bottom left corner of this window. So if you look at the done button and go all the way across to the left, you'll see 16, 16, and there's a little lock in the middle. We're going to change that to, I think we're changing that to 10. So I had to double click to highlight all of that, and I'm going to use my keys to do 10 by 8. So you can see one click. If you're on an iPad, one click in here does not highlight that number. If you're on a computer, it should highlight that number. So for iPad users, you're going to click twice to get that entire number highlighted, and then just type in an 8 using your on-screen keyboard. And then regular computer users, just use it like normal. So click once and type 8 or use backspace. So, but we're not done yet. We just made that screen a little smaller. And the next thing we're going to do is where it says forest, we're going to change our tile. So I'm going to change it to this last one that says miscellaneous, and then choose this gray brick wall tile. And to draw this, we're going to use this to draw a 2-row platform. So now that that's highlighted, you're just going to take your mouse or your finger and tap over in the bottom left corner of our grid. So you can see where mine appeared. So you're just going to do that all the way across. And so that's our first row. And then I'm going to come up and make the second row. And so if you're on a tablet, you can just tap this, or you can hold your finger and drag. If you're on a mouse, again, you can just click it each time, or you can hold your mouse down and drag your cursor across. But once you have that done, you're just going to obviously come down here and click that green done button. And it will take a second, but that should appear over here in your screen. So you can see I've got a brick wall bottom and then a black background. That's fine. That's all we need for this game. And so now we're going to go back. So that was steps 2 and 3. Now we're going to create our character sprite. So we're going to come here to the sprites drawer. It has like the paper airplane next to it. And we're going to get this first block under create. And it says set my sprite to sprite gray square of kind player. So we're going to get that one. And we're going to drop it in right underneath our set tile 2 block. That one still looks gray, but there's a very faint light line going across the bottom, so that tells us that something's there. Now in the set my sprite 2 block, we're not going to change the variable name. We're going to leave it as set my sprite. What we are going to do is next to the word sprite in the blue oval, we're going to click that gray square, and it takes us to another editor. So this one, it defaults to you can build your own character, and you guys are welcome to. But I'm going to click this top tab and switch over to the gallery where they have pre-made characters. And I used a bat in this activity sheet, so we're going to use a bat again. Maybe. I think I scrolled past the bat. Here he is. So I'm going to use this bat just because I think he's fun. And once I've selected my character, I'm going to hit done. So he'll appear over there in the center of the screen. The next thing we want to do is we need to give our sprite a starting position. So we're going to go into that scene drawer again and get this place my sprite on top of a certain column and row. Oops, go back there. So this is still part of, this is step 5. So go back to scene and we're going to scroll down a little. And you're going to get this place my sprite on top of tile map column 0 row 0. So I just tapped that and it dropped it in my workspace for me on the tablet. So then I'm going to drag that and put it under my set block. And we're going to change the zeros. So we're going to set it to column 1. Whoops. And you can see I accidentally typed a letter, so it gave me an error. We can only put numbers in here. We're going to set that to column 1, row 5. And you can see it drops it to the very bottom over here. So we're sitting on top of our wall, but we're 1 row over from the edge. All right, so moving on to step 6 is we're going to create our falling objects. So for this one, I used a strawberry. You guys can use whatever you want. But we're going to get another set block, set it to a type of food, and then make sure that the kind is food and not player, because that affects how the sprites interact with each other. So go back to the sprites drawer. Under the create, it now says set my sprite to. We're going to get that one and put it under our place block. And same process as when we created our character sprite. Tap that gray. Okay. So this is why I wanted to do this, is that sometimes there can be problems. So I'm actually going to delete this block. You don't have to. I'm going to delete this and try and do that again. So it's not letting me interact with this block on here, which could be a problem. Okay, so I brought that into the gray space and now it's letting me interact with that block. That's fine. We'll fix it later. And then I'm going to change the player to a type of food. So if you guys were having that same problem where you were clicking, and it wouldn't let you interact with it, and you were on a tablet, I haven't seen this happen on a computer or laptop. So bring that block into the gray space like mine, to where it looks kind of like faded out or crossed out, and you can mess with the gallery and everything here. And then use that drop down. And then come back and place it underneath there. I can't tell you why that happens. It's probably a glitch with the interface and everything, but that's okay. We figured out how to fix it. So back on step 7, we want to do 2 things. We're going to change the position of our sprite, and then we're going to combine this with, we're going to give our sprite a new position to start in. We're going to have it start kind of in the center of the screen. So we're going to go back to the sprite drawer and get a physics drawer. In the physics section, we're going to get this set my sprite position to x0, y0. We're going to get that and use the drop down to change it to sprite 2. And I think our values were, let's check. So x should be 80 and y should be 10. So instead of being at the center of our screen, we're going to set it to 80. And if you notice, I have 2 things pop up. So I have my keyboard pop up, but I also had this slider menu show up here. So I could use that. And this should show up on both desktops, laptops, and tablets. So I can use that slider, and then I'm just going to tap off into the dead space to get rid of it. Or I can just type the number in, which for me is easier than using that slider, especially because it keeps triggering my keyboard to open. So now you can see the strawberry is in the top center of our screen. So on to step 8. The next thing we're going to do is set the acceleration or the falling speed of our strawberry. So you're going to go back to that drawer, the sprites drawer, and get this. It says set my sprite x to 0. That's the one we want to get. We're going to change my sprite to my sprite 2. And we're going to use this drop down to change x to AY, which is acceleration y. So that's our acceleration for up or down. And we're going to change that 0 to 10. All right. So that is our startup code. We're ready. Everything exists. It's ready to go. So now we're going to decide how we're going to move our player. And for this game, we're going to use the A and B buttons to move left and right. So I'm going to show you steps 9 and 10 in one go. So I'm kind of crowded on my workspace. I'm just going to push this up and it will give me more space here. And I'm also going to stop that game. So go to the controller drawer and you're going to get this on A button press block. And then we're going to go to, I believe it's the sprite drawer, yes. So we're going to go back to the sprites drawer and under physics get this change my sprite x by 0. And we're going to put that inside the A button. And we're going to change that 0 to 10. That's all we're going to change because we're only moving our, in my case, our player sprite, which is a bat. Okay, so we're going to do that. The positive 10 moves our sprite to the right. We want to move to the left now. So if you're on a computer, you can right click on that block and you'll get this pop-up menu here. To do this on a tablet, I just held down on my block here. And you see I just held down for a couple seconds and I got this pop-up. So we're going to duplicate this block and just kind of drag it over here to the side. And right now it's grayed out because we've copied our code and it's the exact same thing. So the first thing we're going to do is use the drop down to change it from A to B. And then we're going to change the 10 to a negative 10. And the reason we need to do a negative 10 is because a screen is like an XY coordinate plane. So to go left, you have to move in a negative direction or, whoops, sorry. So you should have two blocks, one that says on A button pressed, change my sprite in the X direction by 10, so move horizontally to the right by 10. And then on the second one is on B pressed, move the sprite to the left by negative 10. So X is left and right, Y is up and down. Okay, two more big blocks of code to go. So on step 11, we're going to create an overlap sprite. So this is going to mimic our player sprite catching the food. So when we catch the food, we're going to do a few things. We're going to change the score by 1. And then we're going to tell the strawberry to go back to the top, but we're going to give it a random position between 0, 1, 60. The screen with the X and Y values start at 0 and go to 160. So we're going to tell them to go somewhere in there. Actually, we're going to do negative 60 to 60. I think that will be better. And I'll go back and change this activity sheet. And then the last thing we're going to do is reset the acceleration, because if we put it back at the top, it's just going to stay there. So we have to tell it how to fall again. So we're going to go do all of that. That's several steps. So go to the sprites drawer and scroll kind of all the way down until you see overlaps. And we're going to get this first long block here that says on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player. And the only thing we're going to change here is I'm going to push that over and we're going to change player to food. So when our player sprite overlaps our food sprite, we're going to, like I said, the first thing we're going to do is increase our score by 1. So go to info and get a change score by 1 block and drop that in there. And then we're going to reset the strawberry, or your food sprites. So go back to sprites and get the set my sprite position to X and Y. We're going to change that my sprite to my sprite 2 because we're changing the strawberry position. And then to do random, we need a block from the math drawer. So that's that bottom purple one. And we're going to get pick random 0 to 10 and put it inside this X, the oval next to the X. And we're going to change our values from, I'm going to try negative 160 to positive 160. And we're going to leave Y alone because we want it at the top of the page. And the last thing we're going to do here is go back to that sprites drawer and we need to set our acceleration again. So you're going to get this set my sprite X to 0 block. Change my sprite to my sprite 2. Change X to a Y, acceleration Y. And this time we increased it to 20 so it falls just a little faster. And then that should be it for that block. Let's check. Yep, so the last thing we're going to do is if we don't catch the food, we're going to have the game end. So we're going to go back to our scene block. Whoops. Guys, don't make that change. So we're going to go back to our scene drawer here and get a on, so this is the block we want, on sprite of kind player hits wall at location. So what we're going to do is grab that one, and we're going to change the kind to food. So when our food hits the wall at location, doesn't really matter. We're just saying when it hits the wall. We're going to go to this game drawer and get an end game. So we're going to have game over and you lose. So now we're going to test it out. If your volume is on, this is going to be really loud. My volume should be off. So, okay, that's the strawberry falling. I have one score. It didn't reset. So let's go back and see. Oh, I think it went too far over. So I think that 0 on the pick random, change that negative 160 to 0. And then we're going to click outside here, reset. So you can see when I let it fall, it does game over. My score was 5. That's the new high score. So that's a pretty basic game, right? Like you guys have played games like that before. So now you've made a pretty simple game. It has a lot of going on, obviously. That's okay. The more complicated your game, the more that's going to happen. So we do have a couple options for you to continue if you're working on this on your own time. We have these things called adventure modes, and that's for you to take the game to the next level or keep testing, basically keep working with the code and figuring out what all the different blocks do and what you can do to make the game your own. So some of our suggestions are play around with acceleration time to make the food fall faster or slower. So you might have noticed that we started at 10, and then once we caught it once, I increased it to 20. So you can play around with those to see how fast you can make it fall and how hard of a game that makes it, or how slow. You can add another food sprite to your game and have it fall at a different speed than the first. Bonus, have it fall or float from a different direction. So see if you can figure out how to make it maybe float in from the left or right as opposed to coming from the top of the screen. The last one is increase the difficulty of the game by adding a countdown timer. So in that info drawer, there's something called start countdown. So you can go ahead and use that and give yourself a time limit to catch the food falling, especially if you have more than one, that would make it really hard. So if you want to make your game hard and then give it to a parent or a sibling or a friend to play, that is some ways you can do that. That's all we have for today. On Wednesday, we'll be back with another activity in MakeCode Arcade. This time you will be collecting coins and avoiding objects coming at you from the side. So that one will be a little bit more involved, I think, some more code, but it will be a lot of fun to try out. I hope to see you guys at our live sessions. Have a great day.